Lesson 14. Water transports nutrients to all the body cells. 14.1. Water is the essence of life. 14.2. Water's role in the body. 14.3. Other body uses of water. 14.4. Water in our diet. 14.5. Water, is it fit to drink? 14.6. Sources of pure water. 14.7. The choice is yours. 14.1. Water is the essence of life. Water is the prime essence of life. The functioning of our planet is dependent upon its massive reservoirs of water and its complex systems of atmospheric water dispensation. In our oceans, rivers, underground aquifers, and streams, water prevails and abounds. No one would argue with the statement that without water, life as we know it would be impossible. Even if life were possible without water, most of the beauty of life would be lost in its absence. Dull, barren, rocky landscapes devoid of vegetation would be prevalent everywhere. The clouds that color rosy and multi-hued in our sunrises and sunsets would be non-existent. The fact is that water is a major need of all forms of life. Fortunately for us, in most places on Earth, water is abundant. There's water in all of the foods we eat. Even dry foods like nuts and seeds have water content. Fruits possess plenty of pure water, which is ideal for human functioning. How does our body use water? What is the best kind of water for its functioning? These are questions this lesson addresses. 14.2. Water's role in the body. 14.2.1. How body water is obtained. 14.2.2. Minerals in the body fluids. 14.2.3. Cellular fluids. 14.2.4. The inner seas and its movements. 14.2.5. Waste removal. 14.2.6. Water cools the body. 14.2.1. How body water is obtained. The average adult is composed of almost 60% fluid. That's more water than the total of all other substances in the body. Our body's water is obtained from the fluids we drink and from the water content of the foods we eat. It is also obtained from the body's internal oxidation reactions. The oxidation process occurs in the combining of hydrogen in the food we eat with the oxygen we breathe. Some animals are dependent on the oxidative water they produce for their very existence. 14.2.2. Minerals in the body fluids. The water within our body contains many minerals in solution. That is, it contains many substances dissolved in it. The complement of minerals dissolved in the body fluid are referred to as salts. These salts include sodium, calcium, magnesium, potassium, chlorine, phosphorus, and other elements. They possess electric charge and are thereby referred to as electrolytes. Some salts possess positive electrical charges and others possess negative charges. These charges inherent in the salts are part of the regulatory process in the movement of fluids within the body. The positively and negatively charged particles exist in equal balanced amounts in the body. The resultant charge between the particles is therefore neutral. It is true that the balance of salts is critical to the proper functioning of the human organism. It is, however, not necessary that we use substances such as table salt, baking soda, mineral supplements, or mineralized waters to our diet in order to assure ourselves of the proper complement of salts. Our bodies, as you will remember from Lesson 10 on minerals, can assimilate and utilize only organic materials as are found in foods. Adding table salt to the diet is literally adding a poison. We'll discuss this in more detail later in the lesson. 14.2.3 Cellular fluids. About 3/4 of the body's fluid is stored within the cells and is known as cellular fluid. The extracellular fluid is composed of plasma and interstitial fluid. Blood plasma, a clear yellow-colored fluid, is approximately 92% water. The plasma carries within it a huge volume of substances. It transports mineral salts and carries carbohydrates, proteins, gases, enzymes, fats, and hormones. There are certain plasma proteins that are always present in the plasma. Other materials are in a constant state of change. The amounts of food minerals, such as glucose, carbon dioxide, and nitrogen wastes, are constantly changing in the plasma. Interstitial fluid is similar to plasma, except it does not contain the plasma's component of proteins. However, interstitial fluid does not contain glucose, minerals, and urea, and it continually bathes the cells. Through this bathing, the cell is supplied with its needs for existence. In addition to the circulatory system formed by the blood, yet another system exists and flows through the lymph vessels. The lymph circulation, along with the blood, is responsible for the flow and mixing of the extracellular fluid. One of the major functions of the lymph vessels is the return of the proteins to the circulation after they leave the bloodstream. The lymph provides the only routing whereby these plasma proteins can be restored to the circulation. Another part of the lymphatic system consists of small filtering organs called lymph nodes, which filter the lymph fluid as it passes through. 14.2.4 The inner sea and its movements. The fluids in our body are true life keepers and can be likened unto an ocean in which literally trillions of cells, themselves largely water, are immersed. Within this ocean, the materials we need for our survival are carried. In addition, the same system is responsible for carrying away our wastes, such as nitrogen, unusable minerals, and other toxic substances. The nutrients our body needs are broken down from foodstuffs in the digestive system. After they are broken down, they are water-soluble. This means they can be mixed with water and dissolved in it. When the nutrients are put into solution, they pass through the capillaries, small tubes, within the intestinal wall. The blood flowing through these walls picks up the tiny particle of nutrients. Through the circulatory system, the nutrients are finally distributed by the extracellular fluid bathing the cells. When the nutrients are finally distributed by the circulatory system to the cells, how do they make themselves available for use by the cells themselves? It is the responsibility of the circulatory system to distribute the nutrients and bathe the cells with them. The process by which needed minerals are absorbed, and also by which wastes leave the cell, are known by the names diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. Diffusion is merely the arbitrary movement of particles through the cell walls. The movement of the particles is limited by the size of the pores of the cell wall, cellular membrane. The cellular membrane is a semi-permeable membrane. It allows only certain substances in particular forms to pass through it. This factor is very crucial to the cell's existence. If the cellular membrane did not have the capacity to keep some substances outside of the cell, and others permanently inside, the cell would be no different in composition from the fluid surrounding it, and it would not be able to maintain its distinct life. Osmosis refers to the particular process in which the balance of salts takes place. Water tends to go where the greater concentration of salt lies. In other words, water will pass through the semi-permeable membrane from a lesser concentration of salt solution to a greater concentrated solution. The result is that the proportion of positive and negative electrolytes is balanced. An easy way to remember the term osmosis is that it's a fancy way of saying that in cellular metabolism, water goes where the salt is. At this point, mention should be made that this action of water is not an intelligent one done by the water. Water is utilized by the body. It is itself an inert substance and does not act upon the body. In addition to osmosis and diffusion, a process called active transport occurs, in which electrolytes move across the cellular membrane from an area of lesser salt concentration to an area of great salt concentration. Fluids constantly flow through the cellular membranes in both directions, both into and out of the cell. Through these processes of diffusion, osmosis, and active transport. However, the total amount of cellular fluid and the total amount of extracellular fluid remain at a constant balance during this interchange. There is a real need for this precisely balanced flow of fluids between the cellular fluid and the extracellular fluid so that the cells within the body do not continually shrink and expand. An example illustrates the importance of this balance of fluids. If the cells were immersed in distilled water, they would grow to the point of bursting because distilled water is so much less dense than the fluid in the cells. Conversely, if the cells were surrounded by a strong salt solution, the cells would lose their water and shrivel up. These examples are an impossibility in the functioning of our organism, but they do point to the need for the proper balancing of both the amounts of types of fluids to which our cells are exposed. Now, let's see what happens when the processes of diffusion, osmosis, and active transport occur within the body. Glucose, or blood sugar, is a primary nutritive factor derived from foods. It is the immediate fuel of the cells of the body and is distributed by the extracellular fluids. The liver is responsible, among other things, for regulating the amount of blood sugar that reaches the cells. It also forms proteins from amino acids, which are then dissolved in the plasma. These plasma proteins float in the watery part of the blood and are easily absorbed by the individual cells, which break it down again into its component amino acids. Minerals can be directly absorbed from the small intestine and put into the bloodstream without undergoing chemical change. 14.2.5 Waste Removal. Thus far, we have been discussing water's role in delivering nutrients to the body's cells. Water plays an equally significant role in removing the wastes of the body. One of the more persistently produced wastes by humans and animals alike is carbon dioxide. The body has uses for a small amount of carbon dioxide, but would expire could it not expel its excesses. In the process of carbon dioxide expulsion, the cell firstly allows the excess carbon dioxide to diffuse into the extracellular fluid. Later, the lungs exhale the unneeded carbon dioxide. Blood is able to carry carbon dioxide because carbon dioxide is easily dissolved in the blood's water. Another waste that the body continually produces is nitrogen. Nitrogen is basically a byproduct of protein metabolism. The elimination of nitrogen is not as simple as that of carbon dioxide. It cannot merely be discharged as nitrogen gas. Our organism has not developed the capacity to discharge nitrogen. If nitrogen were combined with hydrogen in the bloodstream, it would form an extremely toxic substance, ammonia. The ammonia would then itself poison the body. Therefore, nitrogen must be expelled in a form that is not itself toxic to the human body. Ammonia combines with carbon dioxide, itself a waste product of humans, to form urea. Urea itself is a solid, but it is easily dissolved in the water within the bloodstream. Urea would quickly reach a toxic level within the body were it not for the functioning of the kidneys. It is the job of the kidneys to filter the blood. They also return to the bloodstream the substances in blood that the body needs. The waste products, including urea, are not reabsorbed but are mixed with water to form urine, which is afterwards expelled through the bladder. As stated earlier, nitrogen is a byproduct of protein metabolism. It costs the body energy to expel this substance in the form of urea. A person following the life science regime and eating a diet of raw fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds will not have as many proteinaceous wastes as someone eating a conventional diet of processed foods, meats, and dairy products, and thereby will expend less energy in expelling these wastes. The urine of a person who is eating a conventional diet, high in protein, is apt to be darker and thicker than the urine of a person who eats hygienically. 14.2.6 Water cools the body. One of the major reasons the water balance in the body is so crucial to our health is water's direct relationship to the temperature regulation of the body. Some animals, such as the camel, actually undergo large differences in body temperature dependent on the air temperature around them. Yet an internal temperature change of even a few degrees can mean death to a human being. A normal human adult gains about 2½ quarts of water daily. To maintain bodily balance, one also loses approximately the same amount. The water is gained from food and liquid sources, and also from oxidative sources. Oxidative water is merely water that is formed by the chemical reaction of hydrogen combining with oxygen within the body. The body loses water through the kidneys and bowels. It also loses water through the lungs and through the skin as perspiration. Perspiration cools the skin when it evaporates, which helps to maintain body temperature. But it can be dangerous or even fatal if the body loses too much water. On an extremely hot day, we may lose as much as a quart of water per hour through perspiration. Losing 8 quarts by this method would mean death. When water is lost by the blood becomes denser. When this happens, water is drawn from the capillaries from the intercellular fluid so that the blood can maintain its flow and carry away unneeded heat in the body. The skin stops the evaporation of water in the body. It is the structure from which 85% of the body's heat is lost. Sweat is a clear fluid, mostly water, and it may contain toxins. Sweat is excreted through the pores of the skin. Heat is lost by radiation and the evaporation of sweat from the skin. Typically, we may lose a pint of water daily due to sweat. 14.3 Other body uses of water. The body needs water for the proper functioning of its glandular systems. The salivatory glands in the mouth and the glands in the tongue help prepare food for digestion and keep the mouth moist. The hypothalamus, located within the brain, regulates the conservation, replenishment, and elimination of water. It can be affected by the type of water you drink. Some inorganic mineral deposits can impair its functioning. Also, easily damaged by impure water are the thyroid, the adrenals, and the pituitary glands. The pancreas has as its function the manufacture of digestive juices and insulin, and it utilizes water in their manufacturing. The uses of water in the body are so multifarious that we can't begin to list them all here. 14.4 Water in our diet. 14.4.1 Natural diet is water sufficient. 14.4.2 How much water should be drunk. 14.4.3 When we should drink water. Since water is so important to the proper functioning of an organism, it's crucial that we come to an understanding of when to drink, how much to drink, and what kind of water is best fit to drink. 14.4.1 Natural diet is water sufficient. Firstly, we should stress that there are no hard and fast rules as to how much water a person needs. Those people eating of man's natural dietary, raw fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, will certainly need less water than a person eating a conventional diet of meats, breads, cooked foods, etc. A person accustomed to the hygienic diet partakes of a diet that is basically water sufficient. Under most circumstances, the foods themselves contain enough water for optimum functioning. The naturally ripened fruits that we eat typically contain upwards of 80% of the purest distilled water. Such water is ideal for human consumption. 14.4.2 How much water should be drunk? There are instances, nevertheless, in which a person subsisting on a hygienic dietary might need additional water. Such times would include days of heavy toxin elimination and during a fast. We also may need additional water when exerting ourselves in the hot sun. The body will determine its particular water needs and manifest this need as thirst. We should readily accommodate our thirst with water of the purest kind. A person who eats a typically American diet containing processed junk foods, salt, and seasonings, cooked foods, etc., must drink a great deal more water than someone partaking of a hygienic diet. This is true because the typical American diet is far from being water sufficient. The high salt content in most of these foods requires the body to demand a large amount of additional water to hold the salt in solution so that it won't harm body tissues. The same is true of many of the condiments and spices, such as pepper and garlic, commonplace in processed foods. More insidious food additives, such as monosodium glutamate, must also be kept away from the cells in a highly diluted form so that they are not immediately toxic. Even a moment's thought will reveal that the body considers such substances as toxic, or else why keep them in diluted solution? Even in such a diluted solution, some of the toxic materials may cause damage. It would seem sensible to avoid such toxic material, thereby saving the energy needed for their elimination. Some health advocates prescribe that we drink anywhere from 3 to 8 or even more glasses of water daily. My suggestion is listen to your body. Partake of a diet that is basically water sufficient in itself. If you find that you need water in addition to the water you're getting from foods, let your thirst guide you as to how much water you should drink. 14.4.3 When should we drink water? Now we must consider when to drink. Drink only when really thirsty, and never drink during a meal or directly afterwards. If you must drink near meal times, it is suggested that you drink at least 30 minutes before eating or 2 hours after eating. When drinking with meals, we often have the tendency to swallow food that is only partially masticated. In addition, the water will hinder the process of digestion by diluting the digestive juices. Of course, undigested or partially digested food is toxic and cannot be assimilated. 14.5. Water, is it fit to drink? 14.5.1. Tap water and its processing. 14.5.2. Salt water. 14.5.3. Mineral water. 14.5.4. Rainwater. 14.5.5. Well water. 14.5.6. Spring water. 14.5.7. Distilled water. The importance of water in our diet has been well established. Although it is best for us to obtain our water from food sources, sometimes we need additional water. For example, when a person works in the sun for several hours on a hot day, his need for water will be proportionately greater than the water content of most foods. When the need for additional water exists, what kind of water should be taken? 14.5.1. Tap water and its processing. Most folks in the country drink the water that is easily available to them. Commercially purified tap water is easily available and is used for drinking water by the majority of people. Nevertheless, few of those drinking such water are aware of exactly what constitutes the water they are drinking. At least in the United States, most people drink their tap water without giving it a second thought. Any person who carefully considers the nature of tap water and its constituents will be unlikely to continue to drink it. Besides the barrage of chemicals added to the water at the purification plant, which we'll go into later, in most cases the water must travel through an intricate web of pipelines before reaching its destination. These pipes pose an additional danger of adding even more unneeded minerals to the water. Through man's continual disregard for the purity of his environment, almost all of the natural waters of the earth are contaminated by chemical pollutants. For instance, DDT has been found in the far reaches of the North Pole area. Among the pollutants of our natural waters are soap, wood pulp, oil, sulfuric acid, copper, arsenic, paint, pesticides, and even radioactive wastes. Among the most prevalent inorganic materials in our water, which are unusable by and toxic to the body, are calcium, magnesium, sodium, chlorine, and sulfur. It is unfortunate that so many pollutants are in our natural waters. What is even more unfortunate for the tap water drinker is that still more chemical pollutants are added to the commercially available water supplies. These chemicals are added supposedly in an effort to purify the water and kill its disease-producing bacteria. The chemicals are more harmful, though, than the bacteria they're supposed to rid the water of. Let's take a closer look at the major methods commonly used in water treatment. 1. Sedimentation. When water is allowed to stand still, its heaviest particles will naturally settle to the bottom. This principle can be easily illustrated by stirring some standing water. If you stir up the bottom and watch for a while, its murkiness will dissipate, and it will become relatively clear again in time. Particles that tend to sediment include sand, rocks, and heavy particles that are not chemically bonded with the water itself. 2. Filtration. Filtration is a process that strains out particles in the water that do not settle. Commonly, the water is allowed to pass through some kind of porous material, such as sand or diatomaceous earth. The porous material acts like a net and captures the particles of the water mixture. Water is sometimes put under pressure in the filtration process. 3. Coagulation. Coagulation is a process that involves the use of jelly-like binding materials. These materials can include aluminum hydroxide, aluminum sulfate, and activated silica. The theory goes that these chemicals will bind with impurities and cause them to settle out. However, there's a great likelihood that at least trace amounts of these toxins remain in the water after this process. 4. Softening. Many of the waters used for commercial water supplies in this country are originally hard, mineral-laden waters. In water treatment facilities, chemicals such as calcium hydroxide and sodium carbonate are added to the water. These substances form chemical bonds with the hardening materials, particularly calcium and magnesium. The resultant chemicals from the reaction are then filtered as much as possible. Sometimes this filtering is done by a process called reverse osmosis, whereby the purer water is transported towards the area of least salt mineral concentration. This process is literally the reverse of normal osmosis and is done by artificial means of transport, such as water pumps. The idea of removing hardening materials from the water we drink is in accordance with hygiene, but we just can't agree with this methodology. Anytime unnatural substances are added to the water, our chances of ingesting these chemical substances are increased. Since it is true that our body can only use the water content of the water we drink, it is best to avoid water that has been chemically softened. 5. Chlorination. With few exceptions, chlorine is added to the water supply of every large city in the United States. It is added at the rate of approximately 1/2 to 1 part per million. Theoretically, chlorine is added to the water to poison and kill the germs contained therein. However, we must only remember World War I to imagine the deadly effects chlorine produces in the body. Chlorine has, for instance, been found to be the contributing factor in atherosclerosis. From my own childhood experience, I can remember swimming in a large chlorinated pool, and to my chagrin, a bucket full of chlorine was added to the water in which I was swimming. Fortunately, I was not seriously injured. It probably was not a strong chlorine solution. However, I can still remember the stinging of my skin and the feeling of nausea and disorientation I experienced from even such a short exposure. From this experience, I must question the advisability of taking any amount of a deadly toxin such as chlorine into the body. Even such a small amount as 1 part per million, which is considered safe by the scientific community, is actually harmful. 6. Bromine and iodine addition. In lieu of chlorine, which is by far the most widely used germ killer added to commercial water supplies, bromine and iodine are sometimes added. Both of these substances are deadly poisonous to humans and are best avoided. Fluoridation. Probably there is no more controversial additive to water than fluorine. These major reasons usually cited in favor of fluoridation is its supposed value in the protection of teeth. Some studies have shown that, at best, fluoridation only delays decay. Others have shown no improvement at all in dental health from the use of this poison. Reasons aplenty exist, however, for the avoidance of fluoride. If excessive fluoride consumption persists, teeth stains and mottling of the teeth, eventually resulting in brittleness, can ensue. The Mayo Clinic Department of Orthopedics wrote that although fluoride administration has been shown to stimulate new bone formation, the bone formed thereby is poorly mineralized. Fluoride is mainly stored in bones, and it increases skeletal mineralization. In tests with animals, it has been found that abnormal amounts of bone formation occurred in these animals to which fluoride was administered. Fluoride can contribute to the calcification of ligaments and tendons, even eventually contributing to the spine becoming a solid column of bone. In addition to bone storage, fluorine can be stored virtually anywhere in the body, including the aorta, the main blood flow artery of the heart. There is considerable evidence that fluorine impairs kidney function. In some studies, fluorine has been linked to genetic damage, birth defects, and cancer. Fluorine can even react with hydrochloric acid in the stomach and turn to highly corrosive hydrofluoric acid. This acid can lead to hemorrhaging in the upper gastrointestinal tract. Clearly, the harmfulness of fluorine in our waters is abundant. Surely the dubious benefit of protection of the teeth cannot compare to the known health detriments of fluoridation. Fluoride, as it is added to water, is in an inorganic, unassimilatable form. Although fluoride can be found in the bodies of people with healthy teeth, it is also sometimes found to be absent. What has been stated above is ample cause for the avoidance of fluoride and its concurrent pathological effects. We've not even discussed all the possible problems to be found in tap water. Its toxins include lime, soda ash, fluorine, chlorine, and sulfur. Some city water supplies have been found to contain many other substances thought to be carcinogenic. Perhaps the most important thing to remember about tap water is this: it's more than just water. The chemicals added to the water are unusable poisons. The inorganic minerals in the water are little better. Let's relegate our tap water to uses other than drinking, and our health will benefit immeasurably. It is our hope that this discussion of tap water has convinced you of the merits of its avoidance. Let's continue our discussion of other types of water you might consider drinking. 14.5.2 Salt water. Lots of folks are proclaiming the health benefits of seawater and sea salt. They say the complement of minerals in seawater is similar to our blood. Yet seawater is not a food. Its drinking occasions vomiting and can produce death. Sailors will die of thirst before drinking it. All its elements are in an inorganic form, see the next section on mineral waters, and are unusable and toxic to the body. Its salt content requires extra pure water to keep the salt in solution away from body tissues. We're best off avoiding seawater as well. 14.5.3 Mineral water. A huge controversy exists concerning the beneficence of mineralized water in the diet. This subject is fully discussed in the book The Great Water Controversy by T.C. Fry, Herbert M. Shelton, and others. Some of the most important things to remember about mineralized waters are: 1. As was discussed in Lesson 10, minerals cannot be used by the body unless they are in their organic, unfragmented form. The body must expend considerable energy to expel these unneeded minerals from the body before the water itself can be cured. Let's go into this subject a bit more fully. Minerals are only usable to the body as they are found in organic forms of life such as plants. Only plants form the link between the earth minerals and animal life. We cannot digest rocks. Although inorganic minerals may have the same chemical composition as the organic minerals, They differ in structure and in the relative position of the component molecules. The difference is crucial, for it determines the usability of the substance by the body. How does a plant transform Earth's inorganic minerals into usable forms? First, the plant takes in sunlight, carbon dioxide, water, and elements from the earth. By the process of photosynthesis, the plant's chlorophyll captures the sunlight and forms carbohydrates from water and carbon dioxide. In the process of the growth of the plant, the minerals from the earth become organically part of the plant itself. Then, and only then, can the minerals be considered assimilatable by the body. 2. The inorganic minerals found in mineral water are deposited by the body in tissue structures and bones. Mineral deposits can lead to kidney stones and gallstone formation, hardening of the arteries, ossification of the brain, arthritis, and heart disease. Inorganic minerals excreted through the skin can cause tissue degeneration. 3. When harmful substances enter the body, they are encountered by the white blood cells, which are a part of the body's inherent defense mechanism. Continued ingestion of harmful substances, including inorganic minerals, can result in an overproliferation of the white blood cells. This condition is called leukocytosis. 4. It has been suggested that the different stages of life, from infancy to old age, are just differences in the state of ossification of the body parts. The major difference in body tissue between youth and old age is the greater rigidity and toughness of tissues in the advanced age. 14.5.4 Rainwater. What can be more refreshing than a soothing summer shower? Rainwater was once a prime choice for drinking. However, we must begrudgingly recognize that the waste products of all the technological booms of mankind have befuddled our waters. Our atmosphere is polluted badly, and rainwater tends to absorb and wash these toxins out of the air. Although that's great for the air, it makes rainwater drinking unfeasible in most circumstances. If you have a heavy rainstorm and begin collecting water several hours into it, chances are the water will be good, unless you live in an area where the air is severely polluted. Otherwise, rainwater is best avoided for drinking. 14.5.5 Well water. Most well waters are heavily laden with inorganic minerals. When this is the case, well water is best left in the ground for use only for cleaning, swimming, and bathing. 14.5.6 Spring water. Some spring waters are heavily mineralized, others are fresh and soft. When you buy spring water from the store, there's little way of knowing just what you're getting. Soft, pure spring water can be good to drink, but unless you know it's soft and pure, pass it up. 14.5.7 Distilled water. Distilled water is the purest water available. Nothing but water is in it. When the need for additional water other than what we get from our diet exists, distilled water is unequivocally the best choice for drinking. Perhaps the most prominent objection to the use of distilled water is that distillers are not to be found anywhere in nature, although the process is a natural one. For great health, it is necessary that we partake of foods, air, and sunshine as they are found in nature. To the great discredit of exploitative mankind, our natural waters have been fouled to the point of toxicity with the waste matter of our so-called advanced civilization. It is for this reason that it's dangerous to drink even rainwater. Distilling water is perhaps our only real choice in ensuring the purity of our drinking water. Nevertheless, it is a shame that we must use unnatural mechanical procedures to make pure water available to our bodies once more. The proponents of hard water drinking have claimed that distilled water is dangerous to drink because it leaches out minerals from the body. There is some truth in this statement, but not the way they mean it. Distilled water does aid the body in removing harmful disease-producing inorganic minerals from the tissues and bones where those not eliminated are stored. However, distilled water does not leach out the organic minerals that have become part of our cellular structures. We must remember that the body chooses what it does with the water that is ingested. The water does not act upon the body. It is the body that acts upon the water. The body will regulate the proper usage of the pure distilled water it receives. 14.6 Sources of pure water. Fresh, raw fruits are the best source of pure water. The plant itself has already done the distilling. There are no intermediate steps needed. Our body is about 60 to 70% water. Fruits are typically 80 to 90% water. Vegetables are high in water content too. If we eat an abundance of fresh raw fruits, including melons, in the hot seasons, little or no water for drinking will be needed. There are no dry foods. Sunflower seeds are approximately 5% water. At the other end of the scale, watermelon is around 92% water. It's sweet and delicious too. Here are some typical water contents of easily available fruits and vegetables. Avocados, 73% water. Grapes, 81%. Bananas, 75%. Oranges, peeled, 86%. Peaches, 89%. Strawberries, 90%. Celery, 94%. Broccoli, 89%. Lettuce, 95%. Tomatoes, 93%. Cucumbers, 95%. And carrots, 88%. Even dry vegetables have high water content. Potatoes are almost 80% water. If nuts and seeds are eaten, the possibility of need for additional water increases. Pecans are about 3% water, cashews 5%, almonds about 5%, and Brazil nuts are about 4% water. The water in raw fruit is preferable to that found in vegetables. The water in vegetables, especially the water in the leaves, has not been distilled by the plant to as great an extent as in the case of fruits. When you need water, such as when you're fasting, working in the sun, or if you've deviated from a water-sufficient diet, heaven forbid, then you need pure distilled water. Distilled water may be purchased commercially. However, you should be careful in its purchase and usage. If it has any odor, color, or taste, it should not be used. The best way to ensure your pure distilled water is truly pure and distilled is to do your own distillation. However, you should take care to purchase the proper non-contaminating distilling equipment. Distilled water is obtained by a mechanical method in which water is first heated to boiling. Then the resulting vapor, which has separated from the boiling water, is collected. In the process, the chemicals and sediments in the water are removed, leaving only the water. Since distilled water has a fantastic ability to dissolve metals and minerals, it should only be stored in glass or stainless steel. We suggest you store it in a narrow-necked container so it will have as little contact with the air as possible. Keep distilled water from air contact by keeping the container closed. High-quality steam distillers using stainless steel and glass components should be used in distilling water. 14.7. The choice is yours. Now you have done a good deal of thinking about what type of water is best fit to drink. As a less burdensome and hopefully more fun way of reviewing some of these ideas, let's now listen to a group of drinkers and see what they have to say about the virtues and vices of drinking their respective beverages. The setting for the following conversation is in the living room of a home shared by 3 young men. It's Friday evening and some friends and neighbors have come by to celebrate the beginning of the weekend. There's nothing like a refreshing cold beer to start the weekend, right? I don't believe it. No matter how much I tell you that beer is bad for you, you still guzzle the stuff, man. That alcohol goes right into your stomach lining, not to mention it'll raise havoc in your whole digestive tract. Oh, I've been drinking beer for years and I've never been sick. Come on, Frank. I'll go to the sink and get you some water. Maybe that will please your worried friend. With all the chemicals in that stuff, you might be better off with a beer. I couldn't help overhearing your little discussion. I started drinking spring water a couple of years ago. It's full of minerals, which I'm sure we need. You want some, Frank? Nope. You just don't get that good feeling from the water that you get from beer. Besides, this beer is made from spring water. Does that make you feel better, Ted? No way. Mineralized waters, including spring water, are full of inorganic minerals. Those minerals are poison to your body. And, oh yes, Frank, just because you're never showing the symptoms of illness doesn't prove that you're not sick. Maybe your beer drinking proves that you are sick, though. Ted, you're just never satisfied. I went to the faucet to get a drink. I suppose I'm going to die because of that. Well, you might. All the toxic chemicals in tap water are best avoided. How many miles of pipeline did that have to go through? Well, I'm drinking some distilled water. Let me have a taste. Tastes like nothing. That's right. Pure water has no odor or taste, and it doesn't have any inorganic minerals to clog up your system or be deposited in your body. Well, Anne, you've got the right idea in my opinion. As long as you're going to drink at all, you're best off drinking distilled water. What do you mean? As long as you're going to drink. You die if you don't. Not necessarily. If you eat mostly raw fruits and vegetables, which is man's natural diet, you will need little or no water than is found in the foods you eat. Yeah, right. Anyone want to go for a burger? We can't hope to legislate the behavior of everyone around us. Ultimately, the choice for what we put into our body is individually ours alone. Probably B-Mac.